I guess I feel like maybe other people felt this as well in their childhoods, but I, for a long time, had the sense that it wasn't real. Like everything, the whole school, the whole parents, teachers, the whole like play of it. There was a part of me that was like, none of this is real. This is all fake, and it's quite a. The way that it's fake is quite annoying and toxic. So, uh, but I had a strong sense of it as like when I was like 13, like I got myself a therapist because I was like, okay, we need to slow this down before it gets any worse, the conditioning. And one of the first things I said to her was like, I feel like this is actually the Truman Show. The Truman Show isn't a movie. This is actually the Truman Show, and like the Truman Show is not a metaphor. So yeah, I ask that you speak a little bit on that because
Maybe you can share with the audience what Truman Show, because not every person lives in Europe.
sure, yeah, it's a movie with Jim Carrey, and it's basically where he's living his life. He thinks he's living a life. He has neighbors. He has a house. He goes to has a job and so on. But it's actually part of a reality TV show that's being filmed, and everybody in his life are actually all actors. They're not real people, and you know his job and everything is all real actors. The whole world he lives in is actually a set of this world famous multi-million dollar reality TV show, and yeah, and only Truman doesn't know that. Everybody else knows that. So it's a yeah, pretty interesting metaphor. So yeah, I guess I just have the sense that that pointer that you had that you're giving there is sort of actually not a joke. Like I feel like that's actually a really profound pointer to something that's very very real that can totally take the heaviness out of one's experience in a way.
Well, maybe we can give it immediate, very classical example of the meaning of the Paramahamsa, that very Indic concept. Paramahamsa is referred to as a great being, but it has this underlying meaning which is not just a great being, it's really Paramahamsa or Hamsa. Hamsa is a swan, and they say that swan has beak structured in such way that it can drink milk even if it's spilled into water, because its beak structured in such a way that it can separate milk from water before it mix it with it completely. So it's this sense of discrimination. And Paramahamsa, of course, para is like, the supreme. The supreme swan, the great swan, that's the translation. Paramahamsa, great swan. And that epithet, that title, is given to some of the canonical figures in Indian spirituality. A lot written about and talked about was, for example, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, of whom we know a lot through his disciples, notoriously from Narendra, right? Swami Vivekananda. And then others also enjoyed that epithet. Maybe today in India it was given a bit more generously. But it's this example and a reminder that this is within our capacity to be able to extract what we all here undergo through, where we can literally drink the nectar, where that nectar is filtered through a particular structure. This, as a metaphor here, this structure obviously is not some kind of technical reorganization of the body, although attempts were made as well. Yogis have cut the phrenum of their tongue to stop the gastric fire, to destroy the drops of amritam that feeds the heart. But we know that that's not the case. It's not that walking with your tongue up in respiratory tract is not what it's about. It is that inherent capacity to extract that what otherwise is always spilled and dissolves and therefore becomes diluted or polluted, no longer has quality of nourishing, but only gives us colics. I don't know what it will be like to drink milk with water mixed. Not sure if it's a great idea. So this example already there, this example of in the world but not of the world, another very, very Indic way of saying about this. In the world but not of the world. But you are educated and intelligent enough to see this all around you and just look back into a history not so distant or more distant, and you will see that only those human beings who were capable to live life at that level had truly lived. Truly lived. Otherwise, the possibility of, unfortunately, this may sound very, very unfair, maybe insensitive somehow, of being just part of the herd is always there. So rising above all that, being able to create one's own reality is what this is about, no matter what. Is to create one's own reality. To create oneself and to create one's own reality is synonymous. In very practical terms now, without running the risk to go straight into this axioms of existentialism, but in practical terms, we know that every encounter in life, especially the earlier encounters, is what sets things forth or holds us back. So all this is down to encounters, down to connections, down to relations and where we get invested. Some investments are always there to drain our resources, to deplete us. Others paying handsomely there and then by making us richer in every way. And this is an extraordinary thing. And just speaking about it even in terms of horizontal plane of life, it's these connections. That guy you spent more time as a kid with than others. Someone else came into your life. This person, that person. That's what made it all happen. That's what contributed. And this is very much in connection to creating your own universe. Creating your own universe is not a psychopathic affair of being disconnected from the rest of reality, from the rest of the community. In fact, I tend to I tend to believe, yes, I have to admit that it is at the level of a belief, because feeling could be dismissed as really not a reliable source. That our connection to others is only true when we are truly standing alone. This is when our connection to others, the rest of human family, rest of the creation, is truly checked. All other superficial, forgive me, connections are of very weak nature. They may feel like, yeah, like rich social life. And then that rich social life translates into, when ambition kicks in, into creating organizations, creating this something, change the world, be the change, bring it on, man. Shaking the tree. No need to shake the tree. It will shake itself when the wind comes. But this is not necessarily something that I want to, like, say all that, no. Each and every one of us finds out for themselves. Some of us are more social by nature, even by the way the planets would have it. Others more private. Others more complex. Very private, very social. At once, depending on the situation, Complete recluse, the next thing, going out, dancing on the table. So, but how to be in the world but not of the world? It has to be authentic. That's the only answer. It has to be authentic, not made believe. Because then it may be on par with something playing not itself out, but something just requires adjustment, something requires, as you said, that, okay, let's check this, whether this is, whether I need a little help to, to make me a little bit more palatable, not always sour in relation to everything and everyone, to add a little bit of sweetness which then goes around, and makes us all easier to digest each other, tastier. Because if we only want to, like, that's my truth and out of my way, or that's, it's also can be quite plainly ridiculous. Who is gaining anything? So we are here to partake in the sweetness of each other as well. So this may be where it oscillates, just maybe, between that standing as consciousness, supreme sense of sovereignty, walking as universe, self-sufficient, and at the same time partaking, sharing this without even doing anything, because it's just there, it oozes out, because of that sweetness is here to be shared. So dance is somewhere there. So of course, it's a wonderful, wonderful connection when there is this ripeness of the fruit. Sweetness comes with that. with its unique flavor. And it easily turns sour when we push ourselves in force. Just, it's something in the cooking, in the ripening. Something which also is subject to weather, subject to that morning mist, with drop of temperature and humidity, and then a very hot day, scorchingly hot. And by night the coolness sets in again. And the whole vineyard is enveloped by that moist mist. So by the time to harvest and to press the grapes, it's really fit to brew for a lovely wine. We are interdependent. All interdependent in ways we shall never know, truly. But what perhaps here is an encouragement for all of us is to be psychologically independent beings. Psyche, soul. So maybe just that. What do you think?
I guess, is there a more specific part of the question that you're interested in me responding to, or just in general?
No, just being polite. Just, I may be not interested at all to know what you think. You see?
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think, nevertheless?
Okay. All right, fair enough. I can accept that. Um, well, yeah, I think what you said there about the dance between this stand of sovereignty and sort of crystallizing one's own psychology as something that is one's own and living from those principles and sticking to that. That's something that is very true, but also if you do that too much, it creates a kind of closure. You become locked inside yourself, and as you said, you suffer relationally from that if you become too fixed in that. So I would agree. It's very much this dance between that and being more receptive, being more relational, being more group consciousness. But I still would say the fundamental task beneath the getting social and getting more fluid, and that's all fine. That's all part of the human dance that one needs to learn how to dance that way. But still underneath that, the fundamental thing is the crystallization of one's consciousness away from the group consciousness. To individualize is the first task, and that's something that the mother says as well. That crystallization of the individual psyche is basically the first prerequisite to all sadhana, the first and one of the most important. And the culmination of that is thought to be in the discovery of the psychic being. So the soul that you just talked about, it's thought to be that. So that's actually the most important element of all sadhana, is the crystallization of the individual leading to the discovery of the soul. So the social and the relational is all important, all necessary, but still, when you're in the Truman Show, you need to have the background remembrance that the ultimate thing still is to escape the Truman Show. But with that memory, you have to be a fully participant actor. Does that make any sense? I got a little bit lost there, but so the game is you have to be fully in the Truman Show, loving the Truman Show, fully participating, but still you remember that the ultimate object is the escape of the Truman Show, and the Truman Show isn't real. I don't know. That's what I think apparently, but yeah.
Oh, very good. That's exactly what we've talked in the immersion that was here early in June. The importance of understanding what true individuality comprised of. Because it's that realization of aloneness here. That aloneness here is also paradoxically the most intimate connection to then anything, including group consciousness. Without that mature, evolved, independent aloneness, which is the realization, which is awakening on soul level, we are influenced by the group, and we don't know what the group is or the state of the group in any moment in time might be. So this perspective is to safeguard. That's what Mother here was extrapolating. It's the very kernel of all Indic spirituality. That existential aspect here, that supreme subjectivity. Because in that state of aloneness, individual begins to exert influence on the group. So the role reverses. The influential power is now influencing the group rather than being influenced. Whereas prior to that state of sovereignty, one is constantly under variety of impacts, known and unknown, subtle and obvious. But I want to bring something else here which might add to that discussion, is that even when we speak about the mature stages of self-realization, there are these dynamics of the observer and the observed, the subject-object dynamics. First is seeing everything in terms of one's own self. This is the realization of the self. Seeing the world, other beings, in terms of one's own self. Recognizing the world in one's own self. When that takes place, there is a wave where one recognizes oneself in the world. This is true to Vedanta, this is true to Tantra. You see? So some of the Mahavakyas were exactly this, to express these dynamics. I am that, and that I am. First is with reference to one's soul subjectivity, and then that very subjectivity is recognized in the object of one's experience as that very same subjectivity. And that is a truly intimate affair. There's water equalized itself on all levels, we could say. Seeing the world in terms of oneself and recognizing oneself in the world. But with regard to the crystallization of that sense of self, which is a prerequisite for all sadhana, as you have rightly pointed out, by drawing this inspiration from the work of the Mother and the Sri Aurobindo, is intact to all true perennial traditions, all of them without exception. Therefore, in Sufi, there is a great clarity in terms of so-called moral, worldly moral, and spiritual ethics. And one intimately learns, one is invited to learn so as to be able to distinguish it, so that one doesn't mix apples and pears and get enmeshed. These morals that run the world, and this is why I brought that quote, not quote, but that remark of that fella who said that something illegal is going on here.